In today's video, I'm going to go over some new Starfield information, well, it's kind of new, that we learned from a recent interview that IGN had with Todd Howard, Starfield's game director. I'm a little late to covering this, but there's a lot of information and some good information. I'll leave chapter markers below. Let's jump on in. The first subject matter is that of procedural generation. In the gameplay reveal, we learned that Starfield will have over 1,000 explorable planets. Honestly, that was not necessarily the greatest news, as gamers have learned over the years that quantity usually doesn't equate to quality. And as the famous saying goes, an ocean wide but a puddle deep. 1,000 planets to explore, but how many of them are even worth exploring? In this recent IGN interview, Todd did confirm that Bethesda is using a ton of procedural generation to make this possible, something we all, of course, have expected when you announce 1,000 planets. What Todd also said, though, is that Starfield is going to have more handcrafted content than they've ever done in a game before. If you're a player that just wants to do the main quest line and a few of the faction lines, a lot of that is supposedly going to contain a lot more of a handcrafted type experience. For players who want to experience the game in its entirety and take things like crafting and exploration to the max, it's kind of hard to predict how good that experience will be with Starfield. If we look at it optimistically, procedural generation can probably recreate realistic type planets pretty damn well. Just take a look at Mars, or think about an ice planet. You don't really need to handcraft planets like those. The question here, though, is will it be fun to go to a realistic looking Mars in a video game? And I say that that depends on the purpose of your visit. If you're forced to go there and you're stuck there for 4+ hours trying to complete a quest line, and then you get sent back to that planet multiple times later on in the game, yeah, that could get boring really fast. But if the majority of these heavily procedurally generated planets are more so optional content for activities such as gathering resources, base building, or discovering secrets, then they could serve their purpose in the game. What I'm hoping for here is kind of like a Skyrim inside of a No Man's Sky, or you could even say Skyrim inside of the Elder Scrolls Daggerfall, as Todd did mention Daggerfall in this interview. Moving on to space combat, which we did get a nice demonstration of in the gameplay reveal. While on this topic, I want to make a quick correction from my deep dive video. BAL and MSL very likely stand for ballistic and missile, and also W0 through 3 likely stand for different weapon systems. If you missed that video, I'll leave a link below. I go really deep into all of the gameplay that was revealed to us. In this interview, Todd mentioned the ship gravity dive, which I'm assuming is represented by the GRV power bar that you can see right here. Todd said that the grav dive is what allows ships to jump and get out of certain situations. From what it sounds like, each of our ships will have a certain amount of power to work with, and it'll be up to us to decide where we want to designate that power. How much you allow to go to your weapon systems, how much power you want to give to your shield or grav dive, etc. Of course, the way that we customize our ship will directly affect what and how much of something we're able to do. In terms of pace for the space combat, Todd says that Bethesda kind of looked to MechWarrior for inspiration. So it's not going to be as twitchy fast as a dogfighter game, which are games that feature very fast-paced close quarters combat. Todd also mentioned that we'll be able to do things such as dock with other ships, board other ships, steal ships, visit star stations, and there's even going to be smuggling in the game. A good chunk of gameplay will revolve around activities like this, so expect some space quests and even space dialogue. On the same subject, at the end of this interview, Todd revealed to us that we the players will not actually be landing our ships on planets. There will be little cutscenes for this. So on-the-ground gameplay and space gameplay are two completely separate instances. And the reason for this, from what Todd says, is that Bethesda felt like their resources and time could be better spent improving space and ground play and making those two elements the best that they can be on their own, as opposed to trying to merge the two together. Personally, I think I'm good with this, and from what I hear from many No Man's Sky players is that landing on planets is really cool at first, but over time it becomes quite mundane. Let me know your thoughts on this below in the comments. Moving on to character backgrounds. Todd said that there's likely going to be around 20 or so character backgrounds to choose from. In the gameplay reveal, we could see 16. For those unfamiliar, in character creation we will be choosing a background, which is going to give you not only just 3 starting skills, but your background is also going to open up special dialogue in the game itself. I go over all of this in much more detail in my deep dive video. Next up, IGN and Todd briefly talked about step-out moments, and the beginning of this game is obviously going to be one of those more memorable moments. In Starfield, all players will start off on the same mission, kind of similar to how Skyrim and Oblivion start off, and in Skyrim you start off as a prisoner on a wagon going to get decapitated. In this mission in Starfield, we actually got to see a decent amount of it in the gameplay reveal. The player's ship lands and you step out onto a moon called Crete, and there you have to check out an abandoned research facility that is currently overrun by Crimson Fleet pirates. Honestly, this part right here reminds me a bit of when you first escape the town of Helgen in Skyrim and you start heading towards Riverwood. Now let's talk a little bit about the major cities that we'll be visiting in Starfield. Touching back on the procedural generation topic, these cities in the game I feel like are going to have to be very well done in the handcrafted department in order to make Starfield a really good game. Todd said that there will be 4 main cities in this game, and he confirmed that the city of New Atlantis on the planet of Jemison is one of these main cities. New Atlantis is not only just the headquarters for one of the major factions in the game, the United Colonies, but it's also home to Constellation, which is the last group of space explorers, an organization that all players will seemingly be joining. New Atlantis will kind of be like our central hub, like the Imperial City in Oblivion, and it will contain all of the typical services that you would expect in an RPG city. You'll be able to build your ship up here, all of the faction quests will deal with this city in some way, shape, or form, and the main quest is based out of here with Constellation. Todd did not mention what the other main cities are, but it seems likely that the city of Aquila would be one of the main cities, as it's the capital for the Freestar Collective faction, which is the other major faction that's at odds with the United Colonies. And the city of Neon is also likely a very important city. Neon is the city of pleasure, and it's home to a drug called Aurora, which makes me think of skooma in the Elder Scrolls. And I'm not entirely sure what the 4th major city will be. Now on to Starfield's main story. We learned a bit about the main story in the gameplay demo. You, the player, will be joining Constellation and helping them figure out the mysteries of the universe. We know that we'll be searching for ancient artifacts that will play a big part in answering our questions. Todd mentioned in the interview that Constellation does not know the origin of these artifacts, and that discovering that is basically the main quest that we'll start on. On this same topic, the length of the main quest in Starfield is going to supposedly be around 20% longer than several of Bethesda's previous titles. Todd said that if 25-ish hours was the goal for some of the previous Bethesda games, of course this varies from player to player, with Starfield you can expect 30 plus, possibly even 40 hours for the main quest alone. I want to reiterate that this is for the main quest, and if you have not played previous Bethesda games, with a lot of their games, players actually rack up the majority of their questing gameplay time by doing things aside from the main quest, such as faction quest lines. Todd mentioned that Bethesda will be doing extra content for this game over time, but what that consists of, I'm not entirely sure. It could be paid DLCs, it could be paid mods for all we know, or never-ending anniversary editions. Speaking of mods, Starfield has kept modding in mind with the development of this game, and Todd said that he thinks that Starfield will be a dream for the modding community. Many people might look at this in a bad way and say, okay, so Bethesda's going to let players develop the game after they buy it. And there is likely truth to that. But I actually do find myself really excited to see what mods people come up with after I've played and finished my initial run through this game. Modding could potentially be pretty crazy in this game, especially with the vast amounts of explorable planets. And the last 2 things that Todd mentioned in this interview is that pre-production for The Elder Scrolls 6 has begun, and also after The Elder Scrolls 6, we will likely be seeing a Fallout 5. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will continue to cover Starfield in depth all the way up to launch and beyond, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.